Celebrating Heritage Day in style today, representing AmaVenda. Good morning and welcome to all South Africans. I hope you are feeling proud of where you come from and who you are. I'm Alisha Jali, and of course I will be taking you through some of the major stories that of course dominated the headlines during this week on your favorite platform, that's Media Monitor. Here are some of the topics that we'll be discussing this hour. We're going to ask whether there will be a cabinet reshuffle as rumored since Nkosazana Dlami Zuma has now been appointed as an MP, and what's next for Dr. Makhosi Khoza after she stepped down early this week as an MP and ANC member. And with the auditing firm KPMG reputation in tatters, we analyze whether they got caught up in dirty political games. And finally, we ask if peace can ever be restored between Donald Trump and King Jong. But first, as always, it is 9 a.m. It is time to take a look at the news that are making headlines this hour. South Africa celebrates Heritage Day with President Jacob Zuma expected to address the national rally at Siyabuso in Mpumalanga. AMCU President Joseph Mathunja says the union will launch a campaign of mass action against the killing of its members. Mamelodi Sundowns' reign as Africa's top club ended in a penalty shootout in Morocco last night. The defending champions went into last night's CAF Champions League quarter-final decider with a 1-0 first-leg advantage over Wydad Casablanca. But the home team won the match 1-0 and then booked their place in the last four by winning a 3-2 on penalties. Well, plans to restore the Botshabelo Heritage Site in Mpumalanga province are currently underway. The Botshabelo Heritage Site dates back to 1865. It is a site that aims to preserve the customs and art forms that are practiced by the Ndebele people. And the site has been in a bad state for many years now. The state of neglect is attributed to the ongoing conflicts between the government and its trustees. Our reporter Tumelo Machoho and cameraman Thabo Mtsweni spent a day at that historic village.
Botshabelo, a place of refuge.
All right, well, let's try and get more on the celebrations by crossing live to our reporter Mweli Masilela, who's joining us, of course, all the way there looking beautiful in his traditional attire. And of course, he's joining us where President Jacob Zuma will be giving the keynote address later on. Mweli, a very good morning to you. I see the beautiful ladies are flanking behind you there. Do take us through what is expected from today's official Heritage Day proceedings.
A very good morning to you, Alicia, and the viewers. As you have said, yes, indeed, everyone is looking beautiful today. As you know, that the country is celebrating National Heritage Day. As you can see just behind me, there's already some cultural groups that are performing ahead of the proceedings, of the formal proceedings here. This group behind me is a Ndebele cultural group. But what we are expecting, as you know, that this year the celebration is more focused on the issue of national liberation. So one of the issues that are raised is that the issue of the liberation heritage must be conserved, and many people should know what actually transpired in terms of the liberation of the country. That is why there's this idea from the National Heritage Council that there should be some sites that are identified, places, and some people who played a key role in the liberation struggle, and sort of form a network that will help in terms of telling the story of the liberation struggle. As you know, even here in Mpumalanga, there's a lot of people who contributed in the liberation struggle. For example, the issue of Gert Sibande, who became known as the Lion of the East because of the political activities, the contribution he made in terms of political activities in the country. So we're expecting that in terms of the program, the Premier of Mpumalanga will be welcoming everybody here, and then later we're expecting President Jacob Zuma to address this gathering. But what I'm seeing is that already people are starting to trickle into the stadium, and we're hoping that as time goes on, we'll see more people, and then the venue will perhaps be packed.
Talk to us about the cultural activities that are planned throughout the day, Mweli, and of course, at what time precisely is the president expected to address the masses?
Well, yes, today we're expecting quite a number of cultural activities in terms of performances. As you know, that this is the day whereby we're saying that let's take aside all our differences and be united. So we're expecting other groupings. Now it's Ndebele Cultural Group. We're expecting some from the Swati people also to perform, Zulu and many other cultural groups. So of President delivering the speech, according to the program, we're expecting that just after 11, that is when he's expected to deliver the speech. So, as I said, that this time around, it's more about the issue of liberation, heritage, and also celebrating the natural heritage that we have in the country, which brings us together and also ensure that a lot of people from outside come to South Africa in terms of tourism. You'll know that we've got the Table Mountain, you'll know that we've got the Kruger National Park. That is why the government is saying that all those tourism destinations must be celebrated so that we can make sure that the country grows in terms of the economy, because tourism helps a lot in terms of growing the economy of the country.
Well, we see a long list of dignitaries that are expected to attend, of course, from government. Do take us through some of those that will be worth mentioning that will be attending today.
Well, we're expecting quite a number of people. We're expecting all the members of the Executive Council from the Mpumalanga government to attend. We know that Minister of Arts and Culture, Natim Tetwa, will also be the one driving the program here. And of course, we know that yesterday the minister addressed a gathering whereby they were educating young people and community members about the importance of celebrating the heritage of this country. So we're expecting also that there will be other ministers representing different departments here. But as you know, that it's not only about the issue of heritage, but it's also about engaging the community on some of the issues that affect them directly. So we'll keep you updated. As you know that I'm not the only one here. I'll also be joined by my colleague from KwaZulu-Natal, Sibonga Kongembata, who will be also giving you updates in terms of what is happening on the ground.
All right, and Mweli, talk to us about that. I mean, are the local healers going to be part of this? Because I want you to address this question. How free are the people, the indigenous people, able to practice their cultural beliefs? Because it's one thing to speak the language and it's another thing to wear traditional outfits only on this day. But are people free to practice and adhere to their cultural beliefs, in particular in Mpumalanga?
Well, that is an ongoing debate, because, you know, the argument is that it shouldn't be only about this day. Absolutely. As we have put it. It must also be an issue of making sure that young people are also educated. So there is an argument that the issue of languages as well, as you know, that there's 11 official languages in the country. How do we ensure that those languages are preserved? Because now we've got a situation whereby our children are only speaking English at our homes, and some are saying that parents are actually encouraging that, and our children end up not learning their indigenous languages. So the argument is that in terms of developing the country, there is no country that can develop without the people of that country knowing their indigenous languages. So there is that kind of argument. That is a question I'll perhaps to the minister, because we know that there is an idea that in terms of languages, there must be, that is done at basic education level in terms of ensuring that young people get this at a very young age.
All right. Thank you so much, Mweli. I can see the traditional healers on the insert there. Thank you so much. We'll definitely touch base with you. Around 11 o'clock is when President Jacob Zuma is, of course, supposed to deliver that keynote address. And we'll definitely be giving you all those live proceedings right here on the SABC News and also in AM News. Let's look at other news now. At least 20 people have been killed in road crashes since the start of this long weekend. The Traffic Authority authorities have appealed to road users to exercise caution and drive carefully. 7 people died when their bakkie rolled at Verina in Mpumalanga when a bakkie transporting members of a traditional dance group overturned on the R25 just outside Verina. 3 people died when a truck crashed into a car outside Delmas. And in the Northern Cape, there were 6 fatalities when a minibus overturned between Vosburg and Carnarvon. And in KwaZulu-Natal, 2 were killed in a crash on the N2 at Gingindlovu. 3 more lost their lives in 2 separate crashes in Limpopo.
Heritage celebrations marred by a fatal road crash. This bakkie was traveling from Verena to Denelton in Limpopo, transporting members of a traditional dance group. The driver lost control, causing the bakkie to overturn.
We are very shocked as the department because you realize that we are coming from other crashes that happened in the province and took the lives of many people. This one took the lives of 7 people early in the morning, and 6 were hospitalized.
6 people are fighting for their lives at this Limpopo hospital.
If you look at the cause, it goes back to the issue of human error, whereby a person might have been speeding or fatigued. So that is why we are always asking or requesting drivers or motorists to make sure that they are always fit to be on the road.
Earlier this year, 22 people, including 19 pupils, died on the R25, which spans Gauteng, Mpumalanga and Limpopo. The school bus they were traveling in crashed into a truck. Offenses Timo, SABC News, outside Verena.
The ANC's December elective conference will be about the governing party making a choice between life and death. Well, this is according to ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe. He addressed supporters in Limpopo as part of the Oliver Tambo centenary celebrations.
Undoubtedly a Cyril Ramaphosa stronghold. Although at pains to explain that he was in no way campaigning for any candidate, Mantashe said the deputy president would follow in Oliver Tambo's footsteps in some respects.
35 days from today, Oliver Tambo will be 100 years. Secondly, Oliver Tambo is the longest serving president of the ANC. And he is the only Secretary General who has become the president. Number 2, you must also remember that the last time we had a president from Limpopo was in 1917, Mapoko Makhato.
He asked supporters to vet their leader of choice and ensure that the candidate is loyal, ethical and principled, saying it's up to branches to effect a change by choosing the right leader, especially given issues of idolatry and factionalism in the ANC ahead of the elective conference.
This conference is about a choice between life and death of the ANC.
Mantashe has warned that failure to follow due process during succession battles have tended to throw the ANC into crisis.
Struggle icon and former ANC president, the late Oliver Reginald Tambo, has been honored in Windhoek, Namibia. Tambo served as ANC president from 1967 to 1991. Participants at a panel discussion paid tribute to his selfless style of leadership during the apartheid struggle.
Here was this colossal, illustrious revolutionary of our times who inspired the youth of the 60s, the youth of the 70s, the youth of the 80s. But I dare say, Ambassador, High Commissioner, he also inspired the youth of Mandela's era.
We are reminded of his selflessness, humility, fortitude, character, intellectualism, Africanism, yet an internationalist par excellence.
All right, our panelists today, we're very pleased to welcome media analyst Ms. Thandi Smith from Media Monitoring Africa. Good morning, Thandi.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. And of course, in our Bloemfontein studio, we're very pleased to be joined by political analyst Dr. Setulego Matebetsi. Doctor, a very good morning to you. Happy Heritage Day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely a privilege, and good morning to the viewers at home.
Thank you so much, Thandi. I was hoping you were going to rock your Zulu outfit. But anyway, after the break, we'll take a look at whether Makhosi Khoza's leaving the ANC was indeed inevitable. It's all coming up shortly after this.
What guides us? What leads us forward? Is it the advice of our elders? Is it the actions of our people? Or the voices of our citizens? Your country is guided by the voices of its people, and your broadcaster is dependent on your voice to guide it. Get your copy of the SABC's editorial policy and have your say.
Welcome back. Your main news now. Former AU Commissioner Dr. Nkosazana Dlami Zuma has finally been sworn in as an African National Congress Member of Parliament. She is replacing former ANC MP Mpumalanga, who resigned early this month. The newly sworn in ANC MP squashed rumors that she'll soon be given a cabinet post and says that she's deployed to the legislature to serve the ANC caucus. It has been 5 years since Dlamini Zuma was last an MP. Dlamini Zuma, who's said to be a front runner to claim the ANC's presidents in December, has bemoaned the public perception of the ANC being a corrupt party. The newly appointed MP has the full backing of her party of women, as well as the Youth League, as well as, of course, the military veterans. And of course, let's start with that discussion. Doctor, let's start with you. Let's talk about, of course, the swearing in of Dr. Nkosazana Dlami Zuma. Do you foresee this rumored cabinet reshuffle that is about to take place that we are not sure about?
Well, it's very difficult to even predict whether there will be another cabinet reshuffle, because the ANC has become unpredictable. If you just analyze the ANC over the past 5 to 8 years, you will see that the next morning you wake up, there is another scandal, another controversy. But I don't think a cabinet reshuffle per se is actually a controversial issue, but based on the tenure of President Jacob Zuma, I can already say that there is a high possibility that there might just be a reshuffling of cabinet once again to try and align the campaign of Dr. Nkosazana Zuma with obviously with an eye on the elective conference of the African National Congress in December.
Thandi, I mean, as a media specialist, let's talk about this. Dr. Makhosi Khoza's resignation actually overshadowed the swearing in of Dr. Dlamini Zuma as, of course, an ANC MP. Talk to us about that. Yeah. Where does our media run to for stories?
You know, it's actually really interesting that, you know, for a change, within the same week, we have two very powerful women in the media space at the same time, and one definitely overshadowing the other. Yeah. Yet the issues the issues at both levels are critical to what's going on in trying to understand the political environment at the moment. Obviously, you've had Makhosi Khoza being in the media space for quite a while now, with all the statements and being quite outspoken about issues. But I also think that it's natural for media to lean more towards dealing with the Makhosi Khoza issue because we're trying to latch onto little pockets of where we can try and unpack issues of corruption, and so I think it's normal for that to happen. What is more important, I think, is to actually understand the process of swearing in MPs at this stage. What does it mean?
Yeah.
What next? Like we've heard, the ANC as a party is being very unpredictable, or has been unpredictable. So what does, at this stage, swearing in MPs mean? What is it going to lead to? We have to be unpacking those issues and trying to inform potential voters and people in trying to understand this process.
Thank you so much. Doctor, I mean, should we be worried about this, of course, the swearing in of Dr. Nkosazana Dlami Zuma into Parliament? A lot of people are saying, is this not too fast, an elevation for her towards cabinet? And of course, after we saw what happened, of course, with Brian Molefe, who was sworn in 1 month and a couple of weeks later, he was out of Parliament. Is it necessary for Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma to be in Parliament if she does become the future president of this country?
I'm going to use a word which has been referred to as being unparliamentary, the so-called factions within the African National Congress. And it seems as though this has to do with the balance of power within the African National Congress. The ones who possess the power are taking the decisions. And unfortunately, because I've been questioning, where are the voices of reason within the African National Congress? And it seems as if they are out there, but they can't raise their voice. Yes, definitely, once again, I think the dominant faction within the African National Congress, and whether we like it or not, that dominant faction is actually the faction that supports the candidature of Dr. Nkosazana Zuma. And I think they are trying to, to test the waters to say to what extent can they enhance the image of Dr. Nkosazana Zuma, and one way or the other, it's so that she could be appointed as a minister. And it's very unfortunately, because it seems as if we are taking short-term decisions which at the end of the day will have huge consequences, not only for the African National Congress, but definitely it will affect every citizen of this country. But definitely for me, it is a ploy to enhance the image of Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, but the question is, at what cost? And it seems as if that is totally disregarded, and this faction wants to win the election at all cost.
But Doctor, most party leaders do not want another Zuma in power, as we've heard also from the branches, the members, and NEC member Bheki Cele even issued a warning that the party could lose the 2019 elections if it doesn't start listening to the people. What do you say about these things? And of course, we've heard coming out of the woodwork since the Pietermaritzburg High Court ruling, former KZN Premier Senzo Mchunu, who's got a lot to say about the leadership issues at this stage.
It's actually very sad what is currently happening within this glorious movement. I think even those party members, those South Africans who are not members of the African National Congress will agree with me. If you look at the history of the African National Congress, everybody can actually pride it with what the party have achieved. But what is currently happening within the ANC, it is sending a wrong message out to not only us as South Africans, but to the rest of the world. The problem with the situation that we currently have within the African National Congress, it's definitely that it seems as if too much power have been vested into public figures, and it should actually be the other way around, where the members, ordinary members of the African National Congress should hold power. We saw what happened in Pretoria during the local government elections, where the people indicated they were not, supporting the mayor that the African National Congress put up. Yes. And yet, once again, we saw with last week's court judgment that definitely there are certain things that the African National Congress do not get right, and that is to listen to the wishes of branch members. But I think also at a broader scale, we should not be naive. We cannot judge Dr. Nkosazana Zuma based on her surname.
Absolutely.
But the question that we need to ask is that if she does qualify, if she does have the experience, and I strongly believe she does have the experience to lead the African National Congress. But we also have to ask critical questions as to, to what extent will this dominant faction go to try and win these elections. And we've seen, I mean, there's an example in Northwest where a branch meeting was postponed. The next morning when members woke up, the branch leaders were elected. And it's unfortunately all these things that builds up. And I strongly believe with each election, whether it is at branch level within the African National Congress, at provincial level, you just get a number of people who loses trust in the organization because of this high level of arrogance of certain leaders who believe that it seems as if nothing can happen or can be sanctioned without them, agreeing to a certain decisions.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, this is definitely going to cost the African National Congress dearly come 2019 and other, the elections thereafter.
Thandi, let's talk about this. I mean, media is so caught up, as the doctor is saying, with the factionalism within the two camps, and that's the namely Ramaphosa and the Dlamini Zuma. But is the media doing enough to find out what the actual branches are saying? Because it's going to bring us back to this issue, as the doctor was saying, that the candidates that are elected, people are saying were imposed on them because the branches did not actually agree.
Yeah, I don't think we're doing nearly enough to unpack what's actually going on both sides.
Yeah.
I think that what we're seeing is very typical of the kind of media coverage that we get when we deal with politics, and especially when we deal with, coming up to an election period. You get coverage that is dominated by, political party at high level.
Yeah.
We see with the previous local elections, where if you analyze the coverage, we covered it as if they were national elections.
Yeah.
And that is typical
and
what we're getting.
Was a big debate as
coverage
well,
was a very big debate.
Big debate as to who gets the piece of the biggest pie and for what were they actually making those news for.
Exactly, and I don't think we have the answers at this stage. And what we need to be doing is like I said, with the issue of swearing in with MPs, we need to understand the process better. We have to actually understand, what does it mean when, ANC elects a leader in December? What implications does that have for the voting public coming up to 2019?
Absolutely, because we're not electing individuals. We're electing a party that is going to represent the whole of South Africa. Well, former ANC MP Dr. Makhosi Khoza announced a resignation from the ANC this past week as a shock to many. Khoza told journalists at a press conference at Lily's farm, and I quote, "I want to say goodbye to the new alien and corrupt ANC. I quit." Close quote. She said she will not be led by leaders who have lost legitimacy and credibility. Khoza came under attack from her ANC comrades for speaking out against the party's president, Jacob Zuma. She was also to go before a party disciplinary process in KwaZulu-Natal after announcing that she would vote according to her conscience in a motion of no confidence on President Jacob Zuma in Parliament recently. Let's find out more in this clip.
The vow that you take, with the oath when you join the ANC that you take, says, I am joining this organization voluntarily and not for material gain, and you are not also motivated by personal, you are not expecting to gain personally. But we have seen consistently leaders in the ANC using their positions to benefit themselves personally and their families and their connections. We have seen how corruption has riddled this organization to a point where it has lost the legislative capital, which is Cape Town. It has lost the Tshwane, which is the administrative and executive capital. It has lost the economic hub, which is Johannesburg. It has lost OR Tambo. How ironic. named after our own pinnacle stalwart, Nelson Mandela. It has lost ekuruleni, the house which houses which is the gateway to Africa. And Comrade Zinzi Kodwa is telling me that it is wrong for me to educate. Has he actually taken time to read the duties of the member of the ANC? It is my duty as the member of the ANC to educate members of the public about the policies of the ANC. Corruption is not the policy of the ANC. And yes, I spoke against corruption. And if that is what the ANC today is, I am not part of that. Yeah. And that is why I resigned.
Doctor, we have very little time. I just want to hear your reactions from the build-up to finally Dr. Makhosi Khoza making that decision to quit the ANC and, of course, the ramifications of that. Speak to us about that.
Well, obviously, I think this definitely has a lot to do with reputational damage that Dr. Makhosi Khoza have done to the African National Congress. You've got somebody, a senior member of the African National Congress, coming out about something that we've all along for the past 15 years have preached about it, that it seems as if this whole notion of politics of the stomach have actually engulfed the African National Congress. And I think that will lead to the damage of the African National Congress within the next 10 to 20 to 25 years. And I strongly believe that you need capable leaders that will be able to save the soul of this political party.
Thank you so much for your contributions this morning. Thandi, a quick one from you. I mean, she's been called the media darling. A lot of people are saying she's running to the media instead of actually fixing her issues within her own party. But how do you think the media has actually treated Dr. Makhosi Khoza for her being so bold and speaking out against the leadership of her party?
Well, firstly, I think we should be commending the SABC for running that interview with her the other morning on Morning Live.
With Zizi, yeah.
It was really great, and I think it speaks, volumes to the state of the SABC at the moment.
Thank you.
But having said that, I think that it's a very interesting dynamic. It's a very interesting situation. We see within a couple of months a complete about turn from an ANC member. And, I think that, again, as I said before, speaking out as boldly as she is around issues of corruption within the party, we need to understand those issues.
The likes of Pravin and Nkosazana Jonas have spoken out against this, and they're still party members. Thandi?
I think that also what's interesting is the fact that she's female. I think we can't deny that. Right. I can't deny the fact that, the media, suddenly we've got this woman who is, taking on the ANC and speaking out, and we don't get that very often.
Thandi, thank you so much. I have to love and leave you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Ms. Thandi Smith, a media analyst, and of course from our Bloemfontein studios we had Dr. Setulego, the political analyst. Doctor, enjoy the rest of your Heritage Day, and as to you. Let's go back now to Mpumalanga, where our reporter Mweli Masilele is standing by with the Minister of Arts and Culture, the Honorable Lunyambo Minister Nyathi Mthethwa. Mweli, it's over to you.
Good morning to you once again, Alicia. Yes, we are still continuing with the coverage of the National Heritage Day celebrations here. Yes, we are coming to you live from Hamurwe Stadium near Siabuswa here in Mpumalanga. As you know that this year it has been declared as the year of OR Tambo, one of the struggling stalwarts that contributed in terms of fighting against apartheid. But to tell us more about what you can expect today here is the Minister of Arts and Culture, Nyathi Mthethwa. Minister, perhaps you can start by reminding South Africans, why is it important that we celebrate this day?
Well, it is important because, as you would know, that we are a nascent democracy. We're in the process of writing our story as a nation, of ensuring that the heritage which is reflected in our society, particularly in the public spaces, is the heritage of a new era, an era beyond apartheid situation. As today, the theme of this month for Heritage Day is the year of Oliver Reginald Tambo, celebrating our liberation heritage. Now, when we celebrate our liberation heritage, we look at many things. We look at different places, spaces. We look at people, but we also look at the road we still have to traverse, particularly in issues like the ownership of the land, about the radical economic transformation, which are critical to complete the heritage, because our heritage is not outside of our land and of our mineral resources. So it's important, therefore, to emphasize that there are people who toiled for the freedom, who wanted to see people tilling and owning land, the likes of Gersibande, who hails from this province, the likes of Gerard Sekoto, through arts and culture, was able to be this international icon, the likes of Umama Esther Mahlangu, as we are here in this era of hers.
One issue, Minister, is that who should actually celebrate our heroes and heroines, especially in terms of political parties. We know that there was a problem with the DA celebrating the Madiba legacy. Who should, how would you respond in terms of that debate?
Well, when we talk South African heritage, we're talking everybody who should celebrate that heritage. The problem becomes when there's party politicking. But the heritage of South Africa, the likes of the leaders we are talking about today, the Lion of the East, Gersibande, should be celebrated by all South Africans because the whole world celebrated him. The likes of Gerard Sekoto should be celebrated. They are part and parcel of our heritage, both living and non-living. The likes of Obuma Esther Mahlangu, who is an epitome of the African culture, especially the Ndebele culture. So that is the beauty of South Africa. What should not happen is that when people reduce their heritage to be party politicking.
One issue, Minister, is the issue of language. There's a concern that young people are not now learning their indigenous languages. How do you as government try to chip in that regard?
Well, the system has to respond to that because we cannot consciously, as a free society, do that which our erstwhile colonizers failed to do, that is obliterating African languages. We've got to ensure that as parents, first and foremost, we make our young ones not to forget their roots, not to forget their languages, because that's important. It's important. Any identity would start with the language. When somebody is lost from the language side, that person is lost on the direction for his or her own identity.
Minister, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Yes, that is the Minister of Arts and Culture, Nathi Mthethwa, just giving us an insight in terms of the importance of this day. But just now I'll go back to studio, whereby there is a debate in terms of the liberation heritage. It's back to you in studio.
All right, that's our reporter, of course, in Mpumalanga, where the official Heritage Day proceedings will be taking place. That was Mweli Masilela, joined by our National Arts and Culture Minister, the Honorable Lunyambose and Nathi Mthethwa. We will be bringing you the live speech from the President. It's supposed to commence from 11 o'clock. But let's turn our attention now to other things, where a debate erupted early this year whether political parties can claim the right of struggle icons who belong to other liberation organizations. And as you know, that of course apartheid was fought by many people from different organizations, but who really can claim our struggle icons? Let's take a look at this clip.
Last year, the economic freedom fighters were embroiled in a legal battle with the family of Solomon Kalushi Mahlangu over the use of his name in its lecture. The family argued that it's only the African National Congress that has the right to use Mahlangu's name because he belonged to the political party.
We reject unreservedly any action by any political organization in the country to commemorate or honor Solomon Mahlangu, except the ANC and its partners. Because Solomon Mahlangu died being a member of the ANC and Umkondo Wesizwe. And those are the organizations that are relevant to speak about Solomon Kalushi Mahlangu, because they produced him. He died being their member, he died in the cause, he died believing in the political ideology of the African National Congress.
But the EFF shares a different sentiment. It says there is no legal standing that this together in the name of a public figure.
There is no such a thing in South Africa as a right to commemorate a struggle hero. When Solomon Mahlangu died, his statement was, tell my people, not tell the ANC members, not tell the MKVA members, but tell my people, all the South Africans and Africans in particular, that my blood will nourish the tree of freedom. So if we had to seek permission each time we talk about struggle heroes, imagine then the ANC must go seek permission before it commemorates June 16. ANC must go seek permission before it commemorates Tsietsi Mashini, before it commemorates Sharpeville shooting.
Today, the country celebrates Heritage Day under the theme Celebrating Our Liberation Heritage. But the disagreement over Mahlangu's name has left many with the question of who can really claim the country's struggle icons.
I, Nelson Mandela.
Another highly publicized case involves struggle icon and former President Nelson Mandela. In the run-up to the 2016 local government elections, members of the Mandela family accused the DA of abusing the late statesman's name over its online advertisement in which the DA used excerpts of Mandela's recorded speeches calling for peace and justice. But according to the Nelson Mandela Foundation, the former statement belonged to all kinds of people.
He is a person who is revered around the world. He struggled for the rest of the world to live in a certain way, to share certain types of values. And therefore, the rest of the world owns Madiba's legacy. And it would be very difficult to pinpoint it to one individual or one institution. And I think everybody has a bit of claim, has a sense that we could personally own him because we've adopted his teachings, his vision, his values, right? And I think that is more important for us to be much more global about his vision and his values. And I think that's why everyone around the world begins to have a share and an ownership about his legacy. But more importantly, we have to acknowledge the history of each of these individual stalwarts.
The family of the late struggle stalwart Dula Aaah asked the ANC to remove his name from the Cape ANC region. The family said Aaah, who was the first Minister of Justice in a democratic South Africa, was a man of integrity, honesty and humility. They said what is currently happening now in the ruling party is a sharp contrast in what he stood for. The South African government has declared 2017 as the year of O.R. Tambo to celebrate the centenary of a struggle icon who spent over 30 years in exile fighting for the liberation of his people. His foundation acknowledges the impact that he made in the liberation of his country and has encouraged all South Africans to celebrate him.
When he fought for freedom in the manner that he did, he never at any point said, we are fighting for this freedom for the members of the ANC. Or we are fighting for this freedom for only black people. Or I'm fighting for this freedom for only my next of kin. He fought for freedom for all South Africans. So at the end of the day, his legacy belongs to all of us because he gave of his life for the benefit of all of us. But the foundation is about the safekeeping, but it's not for our preserve only, but it's for the benefit of the rest of South Africa. Now, people who are decent, people who respect life and people who truly respect him would come to us before they do anything, if they wish to do anything from him. It is important that every person who's touched by him know that they can commemorate him, as long as they do it in a good way.
The struggle against apartheid and colonialism was fought on many fronts. Now that we have won our freedom, shouldn't we celebrate the values and vision of those who took part in the struggle, regardless of their political homes? Mpumalanga, SABC News.
Well, for this discussion, let's welcome and wish a happy Heritage Day to historian and writer Ms. Luli Kalinikos, Professor Pigita Ntuli, cultural expert, and of course Advocate Sonwabile Mangokyo, the CEO of the National Heritage Council. Ladies and gentlemen, happy Heritage Day to all of you. You look absolutely stunning. Good morning.
You look stunning
yourself too. You look very stunning.
Thank you. So maybe let's go to this question. Who owns our struggle icons? Maybe Advocate, let's start with you.
I think it's an important question that is arising 21 years when we're celebrating our heritage, which is the 21st year actually this year. You know, you can't actually apportion these leaders and say they belong to one family. There's a political family and there is a biological family.
Yes.
I think it's important for that negotiation to take place, you know, and accommodate this, because if you talk about, for instance, the biological family, yes, they belong to the, you know, there's a sense of belonging there. But some of the families never even, account for their own, where these people are. They don't know, so, you know. Some of the families, they don't know them, because they were not with their families. And they belong to the revolutionary family, their own organizations. And so it's not to be unfair now to say biological family, PTY LTD, this is where they belong to. You can't do that. You can't use that. That is why, for instance, the issues of the hero's egg, comes up. I mean, South Africa, even if you look at the policies of the African National Congress, Reconstruction Development, they spoke of hero's egg. But of course, in ours, which I think Professor Pigton will talk about, there's a cultural dimension, and you have seen people actually being buried from one place and being removed to another place. But also, people themselves, they through their wills, they actually make some determinations and say, I would love to be buried in that particular place.
Yes.
And therefore, if looking at the cultural, and spirituality, issues, that is why in the Heritage Council now, we are talking about, that there should be guidelines around this, so that this is ensured, so that these issues actually discussed, because really, it's when these icons get buried, it's the state again that also, it's the taxpayers' money. Now, where do you know to say that if the state actually, we pay for that? People say we pay for this, and yet at some point it's privatized. So it's a family that actually would. So there's no such. So that's why this issue. It's a very important discussion.
Very important indeed, Professor Ntuli. I mean, we've political names that come to my mind right now, of course, that have been in the media over this issue. The likes of Dala Omar. We saw Ahmed Kathrada during the funeral there. I mean, the stuff that was said, and of course, OR Tambo. The EFF is even holding a rally in his honor, or is it a lecture today in honor of OR Tambo? I mean, the likes of Chrisani, where the family has come out to say, no, you can't claim him as your own. What do you think about these? Luli, let's start with you, and then we'll go to Professor Ntuli.
Yes, but I, as a biographer of Oliver Tambo and Nelson Mandela, what comes across very clearly to me was their non-racialism, not multi-racialism. And they steadily, from their youth, in the Youth League, they widened their concept of who belongs to the nation.
Absolutely.
And eventually, with the Freedom Charter, but beyond the Freedom Charter, it becomes everybody, everyone belongs to the nation. Our heritage is something that unites us. It gives us a sense of belonging.
Absolutely.
It's like social cohesion. It gives us a sense of belonging, and we are all part of it. And we shouldn't think at all in terms of divisions. Now, O.R. Tambo always, for example, when he was in Tanzania and he heard that there were some children of PAC comrades who were starving, and he immediately said, this is unacceptable. You know, we have to feed our children. All children are our children. And so he believed, like Chief Lutuli did, like Pixley Seme, like Sobukwe, Robert Sobukwe, who said, there's no race, there's only the human race. And Steve Biko, you know, who said, we have a gift to give the rest of the world, and that is our humanity. No distinctions about racial divisions. We are all Africans together, whatever shade, or
whatever color.
Yes.
Professor Ntuli, what do you think about these assertions?
I think I could just testify on O.R. Tambo. In 1977, as a young person, during the Festival of Arts and Culture in Nigeria, we had an exhibition of our artworks. A black car came up here and a dignified man stood there, and I knew it was Tambo, who said, I seek permission to enter, here. And there was a PAC flag flying. I said, how can a father ask his child how to enter into the house? He says, I got 15 minutes, I got a meeting. 3 hours later, we're drinking, coffee. There was nothing. He was our father. And then he says, I will look, after you as he left. And for me, those were the words. He appears in London, and then he says, I am in London. He attends these things with Aunt Adelaide. So the Tambo's wife, Adelaide, was our mother as young people in exile. When anybody died anywhere else, she's the one that actually did. So we are talking about the leadership that was more centered on our own kind of cultures who knew that I am because you are. If I am because you are, nobody can actually tell me that I have to seek permission to honor my father or my mother.
Advocate, talk to us about this. I mean, where should this debate then be taking? Is the council doing anything about this, as you raise the issue that it is a very important debate? Should the political parties then be approaching the foundations or the families and vice versa? How then should it go forward?
We've already tested waters on this.
And what did you find out?
We found out that it's a very emotional debate. Remember our struggle. In fact, our heritage is more than 4.3 billion years old. And once you talk heritage, you talk emotions. The Khoi and San people. Remember, in the 1400s, these are people who repelled the landing of Portuguese on the shores of the Cape. The three frontier wars that were actually won were led by Khoisan, people, with the people that they hold dearly, And in the Transformation Charter, for instance, was spoken about this, which is our blueprint. We had public hearings, and where people commented around these issues. So this issue of the family, the political and the revolutionary family, is quite very important. I was reminded now, about, for instance, when Nelson Mandela said he was prepared to die, in Rivonia trial. If you look at how many people died after that, that's supposed to be a vision, a statement in many companies, actually, if you talk about vision, because that vision that says, I'm prepared to die, that was said there. Solomon Mahlangu, that was spoken, he was inspired by that vision. Yeah. Remember, nobody saw Nelson Mandela. He was a visionary leader, and this was somebody like a martyr, and that was living. I myself, as a product of the, youth struggles, of the 80s, we're talking about this release Mandela, and yet we never saw this man in the streets and anywhere. The Lesotho massacre, the two massacres in 1985 and 82, you know, and then people were inspired by Nelson Mandela. And when now he's laid to rest, you're saying a family must say, a biological family, they're the only ones that must actually decide on this. And yet this man, I mean, so many people actually, because his name was an embodiment of the South African struggle. That is why in the Transformation Charter we're raising this issue, because it's a very important issue.
Yeah.
You know, wherever you say the family comes in to say that this is a person.
But they've got their cultural beliefs, like you pointed out earlier on.
Yes, that's why I'm talking about mediation of this. You know, that is why you're even proposing that there be some, for instance, a board that is set, you know, established, you know. Because the family is right as well sometimes, because you can't allow your person to be distorted sometimes, but you can't not respect the family. Plaki, for instance, there's an issue about how do you present Plaki, you know. Do you present Plaki as an, you know, this was a Secretary General of the African Congress, the first one. Are you going to present him in the, you know, as an intellectual, or are you going to present him as, you know, with a fist and so forth? And people debate about this thing. Not only the family, the biological family, but everybody. But the family, biological family, sometimes you will step in and say, but this is our own ancestors, or this is our grandfather, you know, and so forth. We must accord them a voice as well. But it can be PTY-LTD, as I said, that it's us now as a family, you know, you know, everybody must actually. So these icons belong to the nation, you know. And rightfully so, they belong to the nation. But of course, they also belong somewhere. Do you know that some of them, even before getting married, I mean, I was told that Thabo Mbeki, for instance, when he got married, there was also a word, you know, to be sent to Robben Island, that I'm getting married now, you know, and then so forth. And then they would discuss as prisoners to say, can you also say, is this not, is this person properly vetted, you know, to get married to this person?
The wives had to be vetted as well.
Yes, because that's how they belong. Because of that, I'm not mentioning one, even when President Thabo Mbeki met with his father in Zambia, you know, he greeted him like any other comrade there. You know, because this person, you know, was part of his own, you know, comrades. Even, you know, referred to his, you know, a father as a comrade. The father referring to the son as a comrade.
But then I want us to talk about this. In instances where the families are the ones that are saying the organizations cannot lay claim to a particular struggle icon. Let's hear from you, Professor Nduli.
I mean, in African culture, anybody who is a hero and a legend owes the respect from everybody else.
Belongs
there
to
is no
everybody.
family in a can. Unless the family feels offended. Sometimes you have to come to a family to say, we are going to celebrate this as a gesture. It is, we want you to, you know, to know, and we thank you for having produced a person like, you know, like this. So there's no way in which a family can sit around and actually cling and claim. Again, let's look at it broadly. The ANC, the PAC, all these organizations, they are movements.
Yeah.
There are communists in them, there are narrow nationalists in them, they are good people, you know, so that you cannot say there's just a pure ANC, a pure all of this. We all belong in various actually parts of it.
True.
And then how then culturally, in terms of social cohesion, coming together and linking actually ourselves, then we have to speak with actually one voice, that Mandela did not live for his family only or for the ANC, not even for our continent, not even for our country. He belonged, you know, to the world. And that's what our culture says, that everything we do is interconnected, is interrelated, it is actually interdependent. It is for that reason that you are going to find that the Chinese people will go 50,000 years back in order to reconstruct the monuments of the people who might have even murdered their entire villages, because culture and historical necessity requires that this is a new nation that must really need to move forward. So poor Mangojwa in here, because he has heritage, we should be actually in the forefront, highly funded, like arts and culture, which is where the unity of the nation is being built, where future economies are being built. Today, Italy is not a big industrial place.
Yeah.
It is thriving through its own cultures, through its museums, through tourism and a range of these things. But with us, we only caught the wrong side of our own oppressors of acquiring, money and forgetting about any human values of love, of beauty, and of joy.
Professor Pigita Ntuli, always the poet. Really talk to us about this. I mean, isn't all of this then a huge setback to the strides that we've taken as a nation in fighting for liberation and, of course, towards a democratic country, fighting over struggle icons? It seems like such a trivial thing.
Well, it's anti-heritage,
yeah.
You know? It's the very opposite, because we are all one. We are one human people. And I was also thinking while Pitika was speaking, heritage includes the arts, self-expression. We mentioned spirituality. And of course, an understanding of our history. We need to understand some things which are also heritage, like the system that keeps us as a deeply unequal society. That's also part of our heritage. So we've got to be analytical as well as fully rounded human beings that reach out and give us all a sense of, as Aaah said in 1990, he said, I dream of a South Africa where there are no blacks or whites, just South Africans. We've got a way to go, and I think that, we do have to clear out some unpleasant facts.
Some debates need to be had, absolutely.
Perhaps putting it mildly. But our aim, our focus is to reach that one loving humanity, which is rounded by the soul, the inner, as well as the outer self and society.
Advocate, I mean, Luli speaks about, that we need to do so much more and understand our history and our background. Do you think we're doing enough as a country in terms of education and awareness of what our historical background actually entails? Or are we just happy with the story that we read on page 5 and say, well, then that's the history, that's where we come from. If he says I come from that background, I accept it.
There are, programs that are there. The fact that, of course, we have these institutions tells us that we do recognize the constitutional responsibility that is there. But there's a lot that still to be done. You talk about languages.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still preserving, not developing languages. I mean, if you look at the development of language, I mean, Afrikaans, to take it to where it is now, even English, it took one, political will, resources, community, and everybody. That's why Afrikaans now, if you say local is lekker, it's not, it can't be taken. It's a South African language. It's developed. Now we need to move away from this issue of just preserving, but developing. I mean, languages are dynamic. For instance, take the word. I mean, I make an example that languages themselves that go according to the development of society. Where we were in Stone Age, Industrial Age, some words are linked to the era where we are in terms of development. That's why the word project, for instance, you won't find it in the vocabulary, because our people actually had food, before. So there was no need actually to starve, people are not starving, And now with the post-industrial era and so on, then there was poverty, there came project, And then if you go to now you need to revisit the vocabulary, and said, that's why we need a South African dictionary, that actually develop our own, look at our own languages. Therefore, even for instance, South African Airways, I'm happy that SA has got a new CEO now, Rita.
You're getting political, advocate.
And then lastly, why I'm mentioning this, if you go to Limpopo, you find a situation where When a pilot announces, or the crew, South African language, they create and say, ambane kahle. What is ambane kahle in Limpopo? You know? And then when you go to Eastern Cape, ambane kahle, you tell me, nihambe kakuhle. Because the people speaking Xhosa there. You know? And you again say you are distorting it because you're saying it's a South African goodbye. But you're distorting, you know, the language that is spoken in that area, because nobody there you're supposed to speak a Pedi or Shivenda, you know, and so on, and that you're speaking Nguni languages in an area where there is no Nguni speaker, you know, and so forth. Therefore, that's why I'm saying that the corporate world and everybody, you know, there's still a lot to be done. Distortion, for instance, in Gauteng. Why people, young people, I mean, our students are taught maybe Sepedi as an African language. Yes. You know, they've got migration of people actually moving. You may find that there'll be more Ngunis and around Pretoria. True. You know, because of the movement, migration, you know, and you have seen the statistics. You may find that our policy of language may not be in tandem with the movements of people, you know, and then settlement patterns, you know. That's why now you find a situation where a child who comes from, for example, from Umtata, who was born here actually, in Pretoria, you know, and you find that never would understand, you know, because there's no Nguni language for, you know, true. That person is debased from the roots. Issue, advocate. That's why we're talking to the Department for Education now, even there's a panel that they've established to say that is our own curriculum responding to our own needs of a heritage.
I wanted to ask Professor Ntuli, because you deal with students. Professor, I mean, a lot of people feel that our education system is still very much entrenched in the colonial system. When are we going to achieve transformation when it comes to the issues of language? And I know that the students have started in some parts of the country to raise the issue of language at universities.
I think about 2 years ago, the Minister of Higher Education set up a panel to look at the teaching of indigenous languages in higher education, and I was leading that panel. The initial idea was that we call a one-stop conference of all universities, so we draw. Our panel said, no, we need to go to each institution to know what exactly is happening. We went to all the 26 universities, and we're compiling reports. Right up at the minute when we're preparing the report, the minister withdrew the final report, and they got somebody else to draft a kind of a report. Now, if at all you think that at the highest level of our own governments and intellectuality that we are going to trifle with issues of language, we are going to trifle with issues of culture, it therefore takes us back to where we say that we have been colonized, we decolonized, but coloniality, the psychological template is there that makes us actually believe that we are not in a position to do so. It's easy then, if at all we are not centered into yourself, you are not centered into your culture, that anybody can capture you and redirect your own position to where they really want you to be. You cease to become your own agent and become somebody else's tool. So in the terms of heritage and culture, that is the worst part of it, because we as African people, our culture is our beauty, it's our dance, it's our movement, it's our institutions, it's our religion, it's how we actually do these things. But in practical terms, we don't. I was talking to Advocate Mangocha. They was reminded us that in Mexico, you have television channels 24 hours that are on heritage, that you cannot escape your sense of being and paying tribute to other people who don't even belong to that in a culture. With us in here, the Minister of Arts and Culture and their team, we are pushing social cohesion, we are pushing the issues of heritage. But what is the funding formula? The funding formula is a Eurocentric funding formula that does not respond to African needs, to African people, to African dignity, and to African pride.
Luli, what do you think about this? I mean, social cohesion, a very, very, very big term, but we hardly ever see any strides in people taking this term seriously.
Yes, I think this has been such an important discussion. The question of language, we must all be multilingual.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, how are we going to actually reach one another? And so the languages have got to be taken seriously. They've got to be taken into the universities. And even the philosophy of Ubuntu, I think it ought to go into the universities, not just sidelined as a, oh, well, yes, you know, sort of thing, but really
the
taken
medium of instruction,
seriously.
yeah.
But if we don't speak each other's languages, we then don't understand heritage.
There's a huge barrier, absolutely. Advocate, what lessons should we be learning as we celebrate today's Heritage Day? And also talk to us, I know you spoke to us about some of the things that still need to be done, but at this stage, let's celebrate some of the strides that we have undertaken as a country.
I think as a country, we've got to realize that heritage is a strategic resource to nation building and national identity. As Ngugi wa Thiong'o once said that countries that value their heritage are likely to do well in the economy and politics.
Yeah.
You know? You know, I like the example of, you know, Asians, you know, I don't know how many trips we make to China, but we don't learn how much as the Chinese that they were doing. I mean, take for instance, when President Obama came here, he was concerned about the trade you know, between Africa and America.
Yeah.
Because Asia was overtaking them. I mean, very big way. And this, but people don't laugh when it comes to their own, you know, culture, their own heritage. And how do you protect our indigenous economies, for instance? I mean, our garments, you know, and intellectual property, yes, you know, and all of this. So there's a lot of this that we must actually, you know, throw and say, we need to take these things very seriously. I mean, the talk about language, you know, Luli, I mean, I've seen parents who actually take pride that their own children don't understand
the home language.
Their home languages. Akasazi.
It should be frowned upon.
Isu, like Akasazi is close. So proud, you know. And that this child one day will ask a question when he visits a Mexican. They like sleeping overs, you know, to get, you know, and so on and so on. But come back to say, Mama, what's my language? You know? What's my culture? You know? So therefore saying that those are things that actually will haunt you because the child will never recover from that. So therefore saying that in as much as they celebrate, let's go to that, can I say, introspection, you know, that, you know, heritage, it's so important. When I'm saying it's a resource, you know, to nation building, national identity, it's something that we can't do without.
Absolutely.
You know, and therefore, it's important that let's preserve it, all of us.
Absolutely, and it's not just language. Culture is not just language. It's about practicing and adhering to those beliefs. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, and of course, enjoy the rest of your Heritage Day. That was Ms. Luli Kalinikos, a historian and writer, Professor Pikita Ntule, cultural expert, and of course, Advocate Sonwabile Mangojwa, the CEO of the National Council, Heritage Council, all joining us to deliberate on who should really claim our struggle icons and some of the things that you needed to know about Heritage Day. Let's take a quick ad break. I'm back with more news in a short while.